Welcome back to the Ross Bolin podcast presented by Bolin Media. I am your host, Ross Bolin, and today I am joined by stand-up comedian, writer, and podcaster Jared Freid, whose new special dropped on Netflix just last week. It's called 37 and Single, and you can stream it now as soon as you're done here. I first met Jared over a decade ago when we were making content for the same website. I've followed his career as a comedian ever since, and I'm extremely excited to check in with him today, so let me go ahead and bring him in. Here he is, Jared Freid. Mr. Jared Freid, welcome to the show, and congratulations on the new Netflix special, 37 and Single, available now on Netflix. I was watching the special, and I noticed something interesting about you.
Go for it.
No beverage on stage, no water.
Continuity, and I generally don't bring a beverage.
Really?
Not a water on stage guy, because I think I'm not a notes on stage guy normally, unless it's a planned note bit, which happens during the special. I'm not a water on stage. I like to use the space. I want to be big. I want to be physical. And I tend to believe those things hold you back from physicality and having a moment. For my stand-up, I can't speak for others. Others, it's a choice to not be mobile. But for me, like you see, I use the stool. I run around. I got to sing, dance, and dust, baby. I got to fucking bring it. So, you come to my show, I'm gonna be, spitting on you like Blue Man Group.
Yeah, no, I respect that. It's just doing a full hour with nothing to drink is like an Olympic level feat, in my opinion. Go ahead.
You can see I'm sweating like a pig, like I'm sweaty. I bring it, like when I get done, I do, a normal stand-up weekends, 5 shows, 1 Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday. And then I do pictures after every show. And that's now 10 shows, because pictures is a whole nother performance.
Right.
Not to say I'm lying to people, but to say like, hey, nice to meet you. And then you have the drunkest person alive being like, hey, and you're like, okay. I have to now be the lion tamer. So that's like 10 shows in a weekend. And by the end of it, I am like drained. Like I don't like, doing stand-up. I've never like thought highly of it, as far as like, I'm not going into a coal mine, but as far as physical concern, but like it does, if you're drinking and you're, on stage, by the end of it, you're like, whoo,
Oh, yeah, no, it seems like a massive expenditure of energy. And I mean, the fact that you go and do the photos after the show with the fans, like you said, that's a whole nother thing, because you can't go do photos in a meet and greet exhausted or looking like you're not into it. You've got to bring the energy to that too. Right. Or you're disappointing people. So it's like, yeah, it's one of those things, when people watch like professional baseball and they think, oh, it's a kid's game. This is easy. They're lucky they make all that money. It's kind of like that, where you don't see everything that goes in behind the scenes. You don't consider all the energy that gets expended elsewhere. And for comics, that's another deal too.
Both can be true at the same time, as we all know. It's a kid's game, and it's a stupid thing to go on stage and tell jokes and make people laugh. And it's also an expenditure of energy. I mean, you and we podcast, you get done with the podcast, you probably do what I do. I zone onto my phone. I let my brain melt. I'm like, I need eyes at half mast. I can't talk to people. I gotta, and if you tape 2 podcasts in a day, you're like, I need to like sit in a sauna and look like, let my stomach hang out. It's it is a zoned in. When do we ever have zoned in conversations? You're either half on your phone. I mean, I do the bit during the special. You're looking at your phone, look at the TV, look at the phone, look at the TV. Like, that is how we live our lives. So when we do a podcast, it's the same type of thing.
No, being completely locked in for 30 minutes, for an hour, and like you said, doing that twice in a day. The days I do 2 shows, I go home and I'm completely worthless to my family.
Right.
Like my wife asked me how my day was.
Don't you feel like you shouldn't be that way?
Yes, absolutely.
Don't you hate yourself for feeling that way? You're like, all I did was talk about stupid shit. All I did was talk about the new Game of Thrones.
Yeah, 100%.
Who am I?
100%. No, it's like the easiest job in the world, and at the same time, I'm left with nothing in the tank when it's all said and done, because this is all I have. This is all I have to offer. Speaking of the physicality of your show and water, one of my favorite physical pieces of comedy you brought to this special was when you rip on people with giant water bottles, which I might be one of them. I don't really know. This looks larger than it is on camera, but
It does.
when you use the stool as if it's a water bottle, I fucking loved that. Another one of my favorite bits from 37 and Single is how married men are the worst marketing team for marriage, and that could not be more true. I've been married twice now. I still don't know how to sell it. And I know
I've watched on social media.
Yeah, I do have a bit of an answer. I think I have like sort of an explanation though. So I think it's because like once you're married, you realize how different of a relationship, like how different that is from a normal dating relationship, and you spend the entire marriage trying to figure out how to operate. So you don't want to talk anybody else into doing something that you yourself have no clue how to do. That's my read.
I understand that completely. Like it comes from a place of like, I don't take it. At first you're like, why is this guy just trashing his own marriage? And then and every single man at any point in your life, you've had that conversation. It's always like an older guy who's like, oh, and a little bit of is self-conscious from the married side. I think it's like them being like, I know you're having fun and you think I'm old fuddy-duddy, so I'm going to over self-deprecate, to acknowledge that I know. But I agree with you, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, and I talk about it on the special, like this idea of the next phase of life.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of men especially, we live in fear of the next phase of life, just generally, like because we, look at every like commercial. Every commercial is old dad fuddy-duddy loser, and the rest of the family is the smart people who take the lead. You have to, a lot of male, husband, fatherly stuff is falling to the background, be helping steer the ship, but you're not the leader. You're not in charge. You lead when you're asked to, but I think that's like what we see from men. And you go, even now, like I've been dating, I'm single, but I'm like, trying to give relationships more time to like develop and see where they go before I like cut things off. And I even notice I'm like, oh, like it's not a choice of the person. It's like a choice of like, do I want to call someone at night? Do I want to FaceTime? Like, am I ready to like hold a phone at a 90-degree angle and stare at myself to have a conversation about nothing? Because that's what relationships are, or am I just like going to hang out with my phone for another year? You have that like, and then I think for a lot of women who are really good to their friendships, they go, they have responsibility to friends. They go to brunches, they go to dinners. Like if you go to a dinner on like a Tuesday night, it's all women. It's all women friendships. There is not one friendship in my life that I'd be held accountable for as a guy to another guy friend. Like none of them are going to be like, Jared, I've been giving you a lot. A lot of these women are in those relationships already. So the change from single to married, they're already giving that to someone. We're very selfish.
No, definitely. That you bring up something that's interesting to me. So you started your career in more of like what I would call like the bro realm, right? That's the way. That's
not how I saw it. I understand what people do. In my mind, I'm doing stand-up in New York City. Okay, I'm looking, and I have friends that are starting to get like cast in things, and like people are talking, and no one's talking to me. So I was like, I was always like on the, I don't think I was in the beginning of it, but like I'm a big fan of like Bill Simmons. He would always have a column out every Thursday, and I was like, okay, in my mind, let me just get in front of people every week online in an internet way, so that they come over to Jared Island, and at some point, I'm going to be ready to do stand-up, and I want to sell tickets. And I always, to me, talking about my Netflix special was what I was thinking about the first day. Like talking to you and an interviewer and a podcaster about my Netflix special was always my thought. And so I would reach out to brands that had an audience already. Bro Bible, TFM. I reached out to Barstool at the time. I reached out to and Betches now, and that Betches relationship kind of turned into, such a, like a marriage and a friendship and a familial thing. And, with, the bro angle, I was like, I'm just looking for people that I was ball busting within my fraternity. Like
Sure.
went to Penn State. I had a lot of friends. Like I liked writing funny emails to friends and ball busting there. I was like, let me get in front of people that I'm generally, joking in front of anyway. So it led me to you guys at TFM and us, interacting on a weekly basis. Cause I'm like, let me see if I can pull some people to Jared Freid Island. And then like, I always thought it was interesting because from my angle, like I was like a little, when it ended and I stopped with you guys and TFM, I was a little like disappointed that like that couldn't be a mutually beneficial relationship. Like I was kind of let down, and honestly, like I'm not at your offices. I'm not seeing what's going on a day to day. I'm not seeing how I was seen at the time as someone just showing up and getting to do whatever writing they wanted when you guys have like, tasks and responsibilities. And I'm just like,
theoretically,
the funkle.
Yeah.
I'm the uncle showing up and getting to just write and do stupid shit. So I can understand from that angle, someone's looking at me being like, fuck this guy, which I have done for other people. But I remember like, I just was like, oh man, this could have been like really good for everybody. Like I could have introduced people to comics from up here to wherever you guys were doing it. It didn't go that way, but that's okay.
No, I mean, I think part of the issue there was that it was generally chaos in the office, which is why that company no longer exists. Like we didn't know what we were doing one way or the other, but I think for a time it was a very mutually beneficial relationship. And what I meant by like you started out in the bro realm was more of that was just the place you were getting the largest amount of exposure. And then over the years, that's changed significantly because you broke into a totally different world with the content that was aimed more at the Betches audience, right? Which I believe they like executive produced the Netflix special.
So Betches, co-produced the special, and I guess it wasn't aimed towards them. I mean, like when I was doing the TFM podcast that became the J Train podcast, we were taking emails from listeners and giving advice.
Right.
That was the show. And I thought the interesting part about podcasting is like it was men first. It was, sports radio. It was dudes, yelling at each other. And then like murder mystery kind of started a lot of women getting into podcasts. And I started to notice like all these women started like trickling towards, coming to Jared Island, to use the metaphor again. Like they were like, oh, here's a place where I can get like an honest male perspective that's not hateful and not blaming women, which I don't get into blaming. I get into try and empathize. And in the way I just did with the former TFM, like, going, I can understand why someone wouldn't like me coming in and writing a weekly thing. But so and then I was bringing on comedians to try and showcase them, friends of mine that I would see around the scene. So and then Betches over the years, I was like, they're listening to me and they've been so good to me. And just like, I credit them for like seeing kind of where I could fit in that role. Cause then we start the You Up podcast, which is like a dating podcast, generally from the male female point of view. And then now we got like a thing. Now I got like my spot, where I can like go into their office, talk about dating. Honestly, I'm never pandering. I'm always just giving my perspective. And then when the special came up and I was going to make it I made it myself. I was like, I'm going to invest the money because that's what comics are doing these days. They're like, comics are like, I'll make it. I'll try and sell it. And if I don't, I'll put it on YouTube. And I have such a great relationship with Betches that I was like, do you guys want to co-produce it? Like, and if it doesn't, if it sells, we get to split, the kitty. And if it doesn't, we'll go on YouTube and we'll be production partners there in the way you guys promote other things. So, I'm happy it went to Netflix and when that happened, like, you're like, oh my fucking God, like this is insanity. And then, now since then, like, it's just been like, I mean, it goes in the top 10 of Netflix for a week, which like stand-up specials don't generally do. And it's just been like a blast,
Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs makes the most comfortable and versatile shorts, pants, and bathing suits in the entire world. I've been wearing them for several years now. They cannot be beaten. I wear them to sleep. I wear them to do yard work. I wear them to work out. I wear them to go swimming. I wear them to do everything. They fit great. They feel great. And they look great. I've got the Art Fart Knockers. Duffy the Vampire Slayers, Uncle Bucks, and Teddy Rubskins. If you haven't noticed, all of the different designs and colors have funny names. Forest Pumps, Marco Pool Boys, Zero Dark 30s, and Tightwads as well. I have an entire drawer in my dresser filled strictly with bird dogs, like 20 pairs of them. If you want to look like money while you're working in the yard or swimming at the pool, bird dogs are the move, friend, and their pants are great for the golf course, the office, or going out to dinner or hitting the bars as well. Hashtag versatile. So click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/Bolin and enter code BOLEN, BOLEN, at checkout, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order. Beautiful hat for free when you go to birddogs.com/Bolin and use code BOLEN at checkout. And now they've also got great looking polo shirts that are just as comfortable as the shorts at Bird Dogs. birddogs.com/Bolin, code BOLEN. You did. I remember when you did Fallon at one point, and that felt like it was one of the high points of your career, at least from a consumer's perspective. I was like, oh shit, Jared's on Jimmy fucking Fallon. Right. Seeing you have a Netflix special feels like another one of those. Has it been? I mean, off mic right before. First of all, I was stalking your Instagram before recording, as I often do with guests, just to see like their most recent clips, what they're up to, etc. And I was like, is this man on Good Morning America right now? What the hell? Because by comparison, this is the least pressure-filled interview you've ever done in your life. So, like, just tell me about how exciting it's been having something on a platform like Netflix that's so accessible to so many millions of subscribers, and then getting to go do the rounds of media, like promoting your Netflix special.
It's validation, like it's funny, like, yeah, the Good Morning America to Ross Bolin podcast, tunnel. This is what we do every. This is the media tour everyone does.
Yeah.
It's validation. It's because when I'm writing for TFM on a weekly basis and I'm screaming on a street corner, I got a sandwich board on. Please enjoy my stuff. Please, whatever you do. We're not even asking for money at that point. We're like, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's all we want in the world. And and again, for the people that stayed with me over the years, they're feeling, I've gotten a lot of messages in the last couple of weeks of like people being like, the messages are like, they acknowledge, they're like, I don't mean to sound creepy. I feel weird saying this, but I'm like proud, like a family member.
Yeah.
And that, like, people you recognize Twitter handles you've been interacting with over the last decade.
Oh, for sure.
And I used to say on the podcast, I would say, I'm going to have guests on, and I would say to the TFM audience, I would say, you're going to be holding the rookie card. You're holding the rookie card of a comedian that is going to make it. I have enough guests on here that someone here is going to make you feel like $1 million fucking bucks, because you're going to be the one that's like, I knew them when. I was first. I was smart. It's going to be like a low, a penny stock, a rookie card. And over the years, whenever someone from the show that started with the show, like pops off a little bit, I get that tweet. Like, I'm holding the rookie card. Jared, they were on J Trainer. They were on TFM. Like, you think of the names like Mark Norman and Nimesh Patel. And like all these people that are like finding huge audience. Dan Soder, these were all people that were on the show early on. Michelle Wolf, Che came on. These are all people that you go, they're in the conversation these days.
In the zeitgeist, yeah.
So that is there's a point where you go from like, I'm doing this for myself, selfish reasons. I want to have a career as a stand-up comedian, but it's like, you want to prove those guys right. Like you want to when I did the Tonight Show, it was like my family and my family's friends. Like, he wasn't just like a weirdo doing something on the internet. He was a comedian.
Yeah.
And then you go to Netflix, and that's more like our generation, like people our age kind of, there was validation with certain internet things. Like if you saw a meme take off, like, oh, I know that guy. I saw him at the Comedy Cellar. This was like that, but for our generation. Like, I told friends, I was like, if they gave you a Netflix Letterman's jacket when they give you the special, I'd be wearing it to the ground. I would wear it around to Thanksgiving, to New Year's, formal events, my brother's wedding. Like, you know what I mean? So it's it's really that, like, there's no promotions in what we do generally. Like, there's like really nice moments, and I've just tried to like suck on it for as long as I can. Like, every night I'm like, I gotta celebrate. I got a Netflix special, and now like I'll be doing that 10 years from now, like a fucking idiot.
No, that's huge though. I mean, I think for people especially, that's not normal careers. And I'll say normal, but whatever. I mean, like regular mainstream careers, you have moments where I think you get some level of validation through like a raise, right? Or a promotion. For grinding in the creative world, and especially in stand-up comedy, which I would consider to be like one of the hardest places to go and get your name out there and really rise up through the ranks. Like, it takes years, as every stand-up will tell you. You got to bomb like 7,000 times before you even have your feet wet. It's a massive thing to get that validation, to get something that, and from the personal side of it, like you said, it's like for friends and family who have always just looked at you as a weirdo who's like out there doing something that's bizarre, right? Making silly ass jokes online. It's like something you can finally point to, like, look, this is real. I'm not just out here wanking my dick. It's a fucking job. It's a fucking real career. And for that, I'm super happy for you, because even for me, dude, as somebody who's watched you do your thing for like, I feel like a decade now, is how long I've been.
13 years, but like we've probably known each other over a decade for sure.
It's I love it. I love seeing it, and it was kind of a special moment for me even to be able to go to Netflix and click on your show. And then there you were, and I'm suddenly watching Jared Freid do stand up on my fucking Netflix. It was just cool. It was cool. So I know it's really cool for you.
That makes me feel really good. I appreciate that, because I'm like, there's a lot of, I really do appreciate that, because like, you think of through the years. I just got an email from a guy. He responded to an email from me from 13 years ago. I'm like, I've been waiting, like, and like, it's so it does, and it was cool to see that he was excited. He's like, I'm on Netflix, you're on the screen. It's just the same thing you're saying. Like, and, when people say you don't need validation from other people, yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you fucking do. If you don't need validation, then you're delusional. You don't know where you stand in the grand scheme of things. You don't know that you're not doing the work. You're not getting that next 5 inches ahead, so to me, the graduations were getting into the Comedy Cellar, and then doing the Tonight Show, and then doing Netflix. Like 3 things in 13 years. Maybe before that there was, Just for Laughs, doing New Faces and getting up at a comedy club in New York. Yeah, those are smaller things, but these are like 3 tentpole things that like I needed them. I needed to go towards. I need them as beacons.
I mean, and as an entertainer, those are the things you build your career around. Because when you go to pitch yourself and get yourself in a position to do other things, bigger and better things, or however you want to look at it, when you've got those tent poles to point to, that's when doors get opened up for you. And that's one of the things I think people outside of the industry probably don't understand. It's like, it's not just a big deal from like a personal achievement perspective. It's also a big deal from like a things you'll be able to do in the future perspective, right? Like
like a rubber stamp. It is truly that. I remember I did Montreal Comedy Festival, which is like an inside stand-up thing. Like the Montreal Comedy Festival is like, they have this New Faces thing, and you had to audition in New York to be able to go to Montreal. And I auditioned, I think 4 or 5 years in a row. And just like you're saying, like the minute again, we're trying to avoid rebuttals is really I used to sell life insurance. They would always talk about rebuttals, because someone would say, well, I don't need it. And you'd be like, well, for the if and when, and you'd have all these like lines. And like, that's the same thing for, anything creative is you just want you want to take away excuses. You want to take away rebuttals. Like when I made the special, I spent money that, my own money, and there's an option to do like certain types of cameras. And to me, the only option was whatever Netflix uses. I don't want them I'm not that confident to believe I'm better than the look in the cameras. If someone looks at it and goes, ugh, the cameras, they can't even watch it. So you want to take those away. And part of that is these, little tiny, these lap markers,
Yeah. Watching footage of you and your parents backstage, like, so for those of you who haven't seen the special yet, when the credits roll at the end, it cuts to like the green room, right, where you and your mom and your dad are. That was fucking hilarious. Did you have that idea for? Was it like a candid camera, or did you know, like, all right, I'm gonna get some content out of mom and dad back here?
Well, this is what makes me like my skin kind of tingle from like the days of us doing stuff together. Like, you know, when you're at TFM, when you're at Bro Bobby, when you're at one of these sites, you're like, how do I jump off the screen? What's the fun idea? Like, we were never held to like, what list can I do?
Right.
You know, we were never held to like any like, at least I wasn't, to any like boss being like, we don't do that here. You know, like, and when you pay for your own special, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And so creatively, I was like, it's going to be called 37 and Single because I spent a year and a half on the road starting my set by saying I'm 37 and single. And it would always get a laugh. And then I would say it's a bad combination. And that's my thesis. You know, like that's my thesis statement for the special. And so I was like always playing. And I think Chris Rock or someone out there, I always look for quotes, but like I always sop them up. And someone said it's like unlucky to name your special before you do it. Well, consider me an unlucky fuck because I was like, I knew for a year, this is going to be called 37 and Single. And my parents are characters, like most parents are. And they don't care that I'm about to tape a special. They're going to give me shit no matter what. They don't care. Do you need 10 minutes to relax? No. That's never my parents. So I was like, I was thinking it would be so funny to get my parents like giving me shit literally 5 minutes before going on stage. And then you'd smash cut to me going, I'm 37 and single. So you would like get it right away. When we edited it, and so then they were like, how do we get them giving you shit? Should we give them lines? And I go, no. They won't be as good if they're reading a script. They won't. Right. It will take us forever. No. Put hidden cameras in the green. So we put hidden cameras in the green room, and they didn't know about it until 2 days before it aired on Netflix. So we put hidden cameras in, and my mom walks in. She immediately goes, "It's a dungeon in here," and you see that on the clip. And then my dad is like giving me shit and making fun of me. And my mom is asking me to take pictures of them. And they're talking about Katz's Deli. You'll see the whole thing. And there was much more that we literally cannot put on Netflix. And so I was like, when we went, so we literally the director, when I walked out from them, being them, Mike Lavin, who's like, fucking awesome, Homeless Pimp. If anyone follows like Chris Stefano, you know Homeless Pimp. He's like, I've been around comedy, and he's just the best. He made the special. Pimp looks at me and he's like, dude, I can't believe it. He's like, they are out of control. And I'm like, dude, he goes, we got it in the first 5 minutes. Like, you know, like, and I'm like, I know, I told you it's going to be wild. So then we do the special and we get it. We're like, we're pretty proud of it. And then I'm like, okay, the feedback I got was like, if they're beginning of the special, it kind of takes it. Nobody knows me, you know me, but like as an unknown comedian, I was like, I think people would wonder like, is this the whole show? Is it go back to the parents? So we're like, how about we just put in the credits and it'll be like a special thing at the end. And someone actually tweeted at me. It was I'll take the compliment. They were like big dick energy. Not saying your name until the end of the special. Because I open it, now it just opens up, I'm 37 and single, I never say my name, and then it ends with I'm Jared Freid. So, which is kind of cool. I never thought of it that way. But then it goes to this post-credit scene, and you watch Marvel movies?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of them.
So, like, you know the post-credit scene that, like, previews the next movie?
Yeah.
So what that ended up being, like, my parents in the back ended up previewing my live show that I'm doing right now, my whole hour now. The whole new hour, not by design, it just worked out this way. The whole new hour is one story about my parents and I and my brother going to the beach. And it's all about our relationship. It's about the millennial relationship with that generation, with the boomers. It's about like being on your parents' cell phone plan and kind of with this weird financial relationship we have with the boomers that we can't get away from. They're too cocky. We have no confidence, and it's all about that. So, so it's like got me excited. Like if you liked the end credit scene, you got to come to my show. Like it is all that, and I'm like super pumped about it.
I also loved it because it was like, I think it would have played completely differently if it was up front, because having it at the end there, you do bits about, about your mom and old Jewish women, and
Right.
you kind of do like an impersonation at one point, and then when the credits start rolling and you get that footage, you get to see like, oh, there she is. Like this is
Right.
this is real. Like he wasn't bullshitting. His parents are like cartoon characters almost, right? Like, which is like you said, that's
Right.
how, I think that's how most people, I can't speak for the younger generation, but for you and I's generation, there is such that disconnect between our parents' generation and our generation. Like the internet is the thing that created that massive disconnect. It's a totally different world. They grew up with totally different circumstances in pretty much every way. And as a result, they are all cartoonish to us, right? They're like, and of course, some of us have more outrageous parents than others, but seeing your folks on there was hysterical. Just like kind of anchored the whole thing, right? You've just watched this whole deal, you talking about your life, your experiences, being 37 and single, making references to your mom, and then there she is. They were great. And that has to make it even more fun and special for you, just to be able to involve them, because I feel like they have a massive, massive, massive influence on your sense of humor and your comedy.
I mean, I'm close with them too. Like I'm not, that's the other thing about doing stand up. Like, I am more like the audience than I am like other comics sometimes. Like every time I go to a club, they ask, security's like, ticket, please. And then they're like, oh, it's Jared. Like I look like someone who's there at the comedy show on a date. I'm not someone with a tragic backstory. I'm not someone with my tale to tell. Like my tale is the audience's tale, which is, upper middle class from a suburb outside of a major city, parents who grew up during who were parents during an economic boom, with a son who's with a son and children that went through 3 separate JFK level events. The 9/11, the financial crash in 2007, and then COVID. So, it is a very special relationship we have with the boomers. And I really do like hanging out with my parents. Like we do vacation together, so it is, it's weird. It's also like, that is me, so
yeah, that's what makes you who you are.
And when you start comedy, when you start stand up, like everyone's kind of looking for the thing that makes them different. And I had to kind of dig into what makes me the same,
Yeah, no, I love that. I respect that a lot. You've also taken on the bold mission of learning women across the country's icks, or the things that when interacting with a man immediately make them decide they will never sleep with that man. Do you feel like gathering all of this knowledge has made you even more prepared for like the world of dating, or does it make it an even more like terrifying and daunting place?
More terrifying. I mean, we talked last time I came on your show, or you came on my show, we talked about anxiety. Like,
yeah.
I feel that, because I know it's like, I've been getting emails about dating from women specifically for like a decade now. So I've heard, and every story they tell, not that surprising to me, and that's kind of the power of what I do. I'm not trying to be like the guy who's telling everyone he's a male feminist. I'm telling you an icky truth generally.
Yeah.
And what's been fun about the ick, so I started the bit in Kansas City like a year and a half ago when I first started really writing, getting this stuff together as like one solid set. And a friend of mine, she said she wasn't going to fuck a guy because he wore khakis. And I was like, that's hilarious to me. Like khakis. And then Love Island was saying this word, the ick. And then my friend said the ick. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, if you go on a date with a guy, he does one thing, you never want to fuck him ever. And I was like, well, I have no relation to that. That doesn't, that would never, like I have nothing in my blood agrees with that. And so I started digging into it, as you do with any bit. And what I did was on the road, it started when I had no bit. I had friend won't fuck a guy in khakis. Like that's how most bits start, really clunky and just talking for me. And then I started asking the audience. I was like, does anyone have an ick? And women would raise their, and it was the first time, like we sound gross as guys. It was the first time in dating that a woman kind of sounded bad, which I enjoyed. Like they knew it. They were like, I'm being, and I say on the special, ridiculous and reasonable at the same exact time. And you could see the best icks. People would be like, they'd be like kind of embarrassed, but they're like, yeah, that's what made me not want to fuck. And every ick that I talk about in the special was one that I got from the crowd, I would say. And, you know, I can do crowd. I hosted the Comedy Cellar for 7 years. You're kind of forced into, you know, by, you know, what do they say? By fire, whatever.
Trial by fire.
Trial by fire. You know, when you're hosting at the Cellar on a Saturday night and everyone's hammered and still seating, you know, in the room, you better fucking have something to say.
Yeah.
So you know, there's a lot of comics doing crowd work stuff. And some of it falls flat because I just don't think they have the chops for it. It's just not their style, which that's fine, but that sucks because, you know, in the social media world, that kind of serves as a commercial that doesn't burn your material. That's why a lot of comics are doing it. But, you know, I was like, I'm ready to take the task of yell them out. Let's go. And I mean, they're all you know, I was in Toronto and then I became mad that I was getting ones that weren't on the special. Because once the special was taped, I had to like start on new material, but I would use that ick bit because I was like, it's, you know, it's a fun bit people like. And while I work on shit, I can do that at the end and it'll be a good closer. And, you know, in Toronto, this woman stood up. She said the guy took her to a concert and he made the heart shape with his hand with the band. And you're like, it's great. You go, yeah, I get that. You know, like I get why you wouldn't fuck that dude. I also get why that dude would appreciate the band he loves, you know, like, so, and be disappointed you didn't fuck him. So it was like, so like now after all these months and a year of figuring these out, it's like, I'm just surprised I've ever fucked, you know, like I'm
ever.
like,
yeah.
You know?
No, that's how I feel. I mean, I've probably watched like 100 clips from you at this point from the last year and a half where, you know, you've just been putting them out periodically. You doing crowd work, asking women what their ick is, and then getting these absolutely absurd responses. And your take on the fact that as a dude, you're just going out and being yourself. You have no idea that you're like one strange move or simple outfit choice away from completely decimating your chances at ever having a relationship with this person. And I had never really looked at it that way before. I'd never really felt it that way before. It makes me wonder how many times in my life I took a shot at somebody and I did some icky thing that they were incapable of getting past, and that was it.
Well, the beauty of being a man is that we are blissfully naive.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the plus side. And you know what, you know, it's funny because you see guys in the comments that get mad, you know, very few, but when they get mad, you're like, oh, you're like the worst type of idiot. Like, because I don't know if I said it on the special, but I've been saying it since I've like, you know, the worst part about taping a special is then you do the bits better afterwards, and you're like, what the fuck? But I say, I did actually do a show at the Comedy Cellar, so I would say the beauty of the ick and what makes it fun is one woman's ick is another woman's husband. Like, you have to acknowledge that if we can't live in that reality, it's me. You know, like there is redemption here. So I went to the Comedy Cellar and I was like, hey, can we tape a show of just icks? And they were like, yeah. And so we had a Wednesday night at the Cellar at the Village Underground Room. It's 220 people, 220 women with a microphone at the front. And we got 2 shows. And it was like a town hall meeting. Women just kept coming up to say their icks. And it was fucking fantastic. And I brought like guests up, like my, you know, Nimesh Patel came on, Yamanika Saunders, who, you know, has been on the podcast a million times. She came up and just started railing on people. It was just so fantastic. And like the icks just kept getting more and more specific. And like one woman said he was merging into traffic and no one would let him in. Like, it's like fucking great.
That poor bastard. Today's episode is also brought to you by Next Evo. Maintaining your wellness routines is even more difficult during the summer. You got vacations, kids aren't in school, it's hot as hell outside, and you're off your game as a result. Your day-to-day may look different during the summer, but your wellness can stay on track with help from CBD. Next Evo Naturals developed Smart Sorb technology, clinically proven to help your body absorb CBD 4 times better than regular CBD oil, because oil just doesn't mix with your water-based body. Works faster too. When you need to de-stress and sleep better this summer, reach for Next Evo products. When I'm stressed out, the place I feel the effects of that stress the most is when I'm sleeping at night. I sleep like crap when I'm stressed, which is why I absolutely love these Next Evo Triple Action CBD Sleep. They've been helping me wind down, get to sleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed and without the grogginess that other things have left me feeling. Upgrade to the experts in CBD. A recent lab study found that most of the top CBD brands contain as little as 60% of what their labels claim, so you're not getting what you pay for. Next Evo tests their products multiple times to ensure you get 100% of what's on the label. They do their research as demonstrated by 4 clinical trials, so no other CBD brand comes close. Stay well this summer with smarter CBD from Next Evo Naturals. Go to nextevo.com/RBP to get 25% off plus a free bottle of premium pure CBD, $50 value, limit 1 use per customer. That's nextevo.com/RBP, nextevo.com/RBP. You've done a lot of work on the road over the past year and a half. I've just, from following you on social, it seems like you've been in every literal city in the United States. So when you're out performing as much as you do you do the exact same set in like Missouri versus New York City, or do you adjust based on where you are geographically? Like how does that work?
I never adjust because the goal, I adjust because I'm adjusting the set. The set is the set.
Right.
So I'm working on it. So I don't adjust material based on who's in the crowd or what. I used to, sometimes when you were starting out, you get nervous. So you're like, I won't do the dirty jokes for the old people, or I won't do and then as you get better at doing it, in my opinion, I should be good for any audience. Like there's nobody that should not like what I do. When someone like really gets angry on social media at my comedy, I'm like, wow, that must be the most miserable fuck in the world. Like, because I'm not in politics. I'm telling personal stories. Like you have to really hate that someone gets on stage and tries, because I've been all over the country. I've done the bits everywhere. It's always funny to me when someone's like, oh man, good thing there's a lot of this type of person here. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I understand what they're saying. They just don't understand,
Yeah.
To me, stand-up's a puzzle. I'm trying to figure out how to get the biggest pop every single time. And some jokes are 100%ers. Some jokes are 50%ers. Some are 75%ers. And some you're doing to get to the 100%ers. Like some, you're trying to work. There's some of the special. Of course, I want another shot at the material that I already did. But like once it's on the special, it's in ink. Like there's nothing I can do now. And that's really hard for me, because I love doing stand-up. I love working on jokes. I love working on like the hour. So yeah, it's watching it back is like nails on a chalkboard.
It's torture.
But
yeah, I feel like that's how every artist is with their work in general. Right. Like people, if you write a book, if you do poetry, do stand up, make a movie, whatever it may be, like after the fact, you're still gonna wish you could change things that are permanently set in stone. The only person I've ever seen overcome this was the noted anti-Semite Kanye West, when he would put out an album and then he was going back and changing shit on the album after the fact. And it's the only time I've ever seen that done. Yeah, it's the only artist that I've ever seen actually do that, where he was not afraid to like put out an album and not afraid is probably not the correct way of putting it. He just had that much pull at that point that he was able to pull that off. But we don't have to talk about that dude.
Well, also in stand-up, you can't, once the bit's done, it's done. Like there's very few comics that get like, encores to do an old bit. Like there's Brian Regan, who I've heard that at his shows, they're like, do whatever, like do whatever joke that he'll ask for requests. And then I think he does. Don't quote me on that. But Jim Gaffigan will do Hot Pockets at the end of live shows. So like he gets a chance to do it in the way that he wants to do it today.
Right.
And then the other person is Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer will tell the Machine story.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Want to hear it. I opened for Bert during his last tour, and you see him do the Machine, and the place goes fucking wild. Like, it's awesome. And, I've had some people be like, I'm going to bring my ex to your show. And I'm like, I think I'm done. I think I've done it. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's I think it's a good bit. I just don't think it's like, I don't think it's Hot Pockets, like it would be fun. I was in Raleigh last weekend, and there was a woman that messaged me like, oh, I brought my ex. And then I was going to do it. And then I was like an hour 5 in, all new material. I was like,
yeah,
it's time. I think, and then the whole weekend, no one said a word. So that's actually, which I take as a compliment. You go, okay, I guess I didn't need it,
No, absolutely. Well, let's close with you brought up your next hour that you're currently working on. How long will you work? I guess the answer is till you're ready, till you're done. But generally, like, how much time goes into that?
So material for me, it either comes or it doesn't. It's not like I write every day, but at the same time, I'm like, it's so hard to force that shit. Like, it's like you want to, but you work on bits every night. But right now, I'm at an hour. Like right now, believe me, it would be my greatest pleasure in the world, because we're now taping this on a Wednesday. It's 8 days after it came out, almost 8 days, and they basically tell you, like, the special, they'll be like 10 days and 28 days. And then after that, it's just on there. Maybe something miraculous happens, and, Meghan Markle is on, is somehow mentioned on my, Meghan Markle being on Suits, everyone's like watching Suits again.
Right.
I guess that's what happened or something. So like maybe something happens where my bit goes viral and like down the road, but we'll see. But it was in the top 10 for the first week, number 6 in Canada. And so, my hope is that they're like, we want to make the next one. And I think I'm ready to tape in February. So like, if I could tape it in February and have it come out next summer, same time, right now I'm literally like speaking it into existence. Like cause I'm like, right now I did it on Raleigh last weekend, and like, it makes me happy. Like I love that I watch guys our age just shaking their dad, like giving them shit, because I'm talking about my dad, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, give him shit.
Dude, that's great. Well, like I said at the top, it's very cool to see you on Netflix. I'm super happy for you. We'll let you go because I know you have a lot to do. I can't believe you did Good Morning America before this. That's hysterical.
That was the warm-up.
Yeah. Jared Freid, 37 and Single, available now on Netflix. Jared, Mr. Freid, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Dude, it's a pleasure. Can't thank you enough for having me on. It means a lot. And it's really good to see you, man. It's it's weird to have these internet relationships with people that aren't creepy.
No, it's my favorite. I have like these weird little content friends, like friends from the content world that I get to check in with every once in a while. It's been great speaking with you today. J-Train. Peace, dude.
Later, buddy.
That will do it for today's show, but please support our sponsors by hitting the links in the description of this episode and using our dedicated codes. That is how we pay the bills here at Bolin Media. You can find links to all of today's sponsors in the episode description below. Check out our other shows at bolinmedia.com. We've got Jared J-Bone Borislow's F1 show, Formula Bone, giving you a preview and a recap for every single race, all F1 season long. If you're an F1 fan, Oysters, Clams, and Cockles is our TV and film podcast. For those of you who love TV shows and love movies, check out OCC, as it is known, Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. Go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some RBP merch, like a Horny for Sunsets t-shirt, perhaps a finishing cup, or a Stack Good Days baby onesie. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at WRBolin. Follow Mr. Jared Freid on all of the social medias, and be sure to check out 37 and Single, available now for you to enjoy from the comfort of your couch on Netflix. This episode of the Ross Bolin Podcast is presented by Bolin Media. Video of today's show was produced by Kade Orris. Go to youtube.com/@The Ross Bolin Podcast for full video of our show plus funny clips. I'll be back later this week on patreon.com/Ross Bolin Podcast with Content Kade at my side, and another ad-free exclusive episode just like we do every week will be available on patreon.com/Ross Bolin Podcast. Until next time, peace be with you and also with you.